So the traceability requirements for used cooking oil and for other feedstocks necessitate there to be record keeping of the supply chain related to that product. That includes point of origin data and subsequent nodes along the supply chain all the way through to production. And part of what complicates it within the US market is that those records need to be kept by the regulated party, or in this case, most typically the producer of the renewable fuel. And so as a result, part of the implications that we're seeing within the market is the complexities around how do you make sure that those records ultimately are received by that producer or held by a party that's been nominated by the producer in order to hold those records, and then all the challenges associated with that because of the lack of digitization within supply chains, because of the fact that these supply chains are not necessarily linear, they're quite dynamic, the fact that you're dealing with liquid product that's moving through these supply chains and moving through tanks, inventory locations, and so forth, and that a lot of these stakeholders, while they're collaborating in specific cases, may be competitors in other cases, and so there's friction around sharing the information throughout the supply chain. So the value that exists for traceability across the value chain is there's regulatory value. There's value in terms of mitigating risk associated with not being compliant with regulations or being able to capture the full value associated with regulations. So if you think about the US market and the various incentives that exist within the US market, a number of those incentives are either today or in the future going to be tied to carbon intensity scores. And so the more traceability you have, the more that you're able to substantiate what the value of your product, you being any stakeholder along the supply chain, really is in the course of the trading and ultimate movement of that product. Additionally, the other value exists further downstream, and that is to the ultimate consumers of that product. The consumers being able to substantiate claims, proof of sustainability, proof of other types of claims such as circularity, adds additional and incremental value to product as it flows through the supply chain, and some of that we're starting to see those demand signals today. Some of that is likely further down the road as the market continues to mature, but you have those dual incentive structures and values that exist within that supply chain, and traceability is key to both being able to protect the existing integrity of the product, and then ultimately to be able to capture that additional value as the market continues to evolve. So there's a number of advantages that Veriflux offers in the market. The first advantage is addressing what we call the first mile challenge, and that is especially when you're dealing with complex feedstocks. And when I say complex, I don't mean in terms of their handling, but rather they deal with pretty dynamic supply chains like used cooking oil. You have extensive numbers of points of origin. For one truckload of product, you can have 70, 80, 90, just as an example, points of origin for that one truck. And then you amplify that to rail cars, barges, vessels, and now you're talking about quite a number of points of origin that all need to be traced in order for that end product that's being delivered to be compliant with whatever regulation and whatever market you're ultimately trying to comply with. So addressing that first mile challenge is one of the initial things that Veriflux endeavored to do, and we were successful to do that. We were fortunate to receive funding from the EPA to help us with that in 2021. More recently, we've launched Veriflux 360, and the value of Veriflux 360 is it allows us to address another challenge that exists in the market, which is that as a supplier of feedstock, whether you're upstream or midstream, you don't necessarily know where that finished product that ties and is correlated to that feedstock, what market that finished product is ultimately going to end up in. And so as a result, you need to be able to navigate at the time of acquisition of that product or at the time of collection of that product. You need to be able to navigate the various markets that the finished product may ultimately want to end up in. And what that means fundamentally is you need to be able to navigate the different data requirements that exist for those different markets. And so Veriflux 360 is designed for you to be able to handle those different data requirements and maintain what we call the bio-optionality of that product, meaning that that product can go to any market and any end user market and still qualify and be eligible based off the data that exists and that is tied to that product. So 360 adds that additional value and allows us to expand to any number of feedstocks, raw materials, and finished products across any number of countries. Today, we're in well over a dozen countries. This past year, we traced over 1.3 million unique transactions. And so we're really leveraging that as the foundation for the next wave of the renewable marketplace, which will include a whole host of products, all of which are going to have that same traceability requirement.